revitalization of American Southern food. A new generation redefines tradition. There's something about Southern food that goes beyond sustenance. It's a story told in layers of heat, smoke, and generations of know-how. It's the satisfying bite of a buttery biscuit, the slow-cooked depth of a pot of collard greens, the crunch of fried chicken fresh out of the skillet. But what we're seeing now is the rebirth of that heritage as a new generation of chefs dives into the heart of Southern cooking and emerges with something both reverential and revolutionary. Southern food has always been a living history rooted in African, Native American, and European influences, shaped by the complex histories of slavery, migration, and economic hardship. Today, chefs across the South are bringing these narratives back to the forefront, reclaiming forgotten traditions and elevating soul food into a cuisine that speaks to the past while looking boldly toward the future. The revival of Southern foodways. Over the past decade, there has been a renewed interest in traditional Southern foodways. For a long time, Southern cuisine was either pigeonholed as greasy comfort food or turned into caricatures of itself by big commercial chains. But the essence of Southern food is, and always has been, about seasonality, resourcefulness, and community. In cities like Charleston, New Orleans, and Nashville, chefs are reviving historic recipes that harken back to a time when every part of an ingredient was used, where food was preserved through smoking, pickling, and fermenting, and where what was grown locally defined what was cooked. But this isn't simply a return to old recipes, it's a reinvention. They're looking at Southern staples like catfish, cornbread, and okra, and asking, how do we make this resonate today? For too long, the essential contributions of Black cooks to Southern food have been ignored or minimized. Yet, it's impossible to talk about Southern cuisine without recognizing the profound influence of African American food traditions. From the rice fields of the Low Country to the barbecue pits of Texas, much of what we consider Southern food comes from the hands and hearts of enslaved African people and their descendants. Now, Black chefs like Mashama Bailey of the Gray in Savannah and Rodney Scott, the celebrated pitmaster, are reclaiming their heritage and putting Black Southern cooking at the forefront of the national conversation. Bailey's work in Savannah is a deeply personal excavation of Gullah Geechee cuisine, a culture rooted in West African foodways, while Scott is keeping the tradition of whole hog barbecue alive, a practice passed down through generations of African American families. Bailey and Scott aren't just cooking, they're telling stories through their food. Stories of resilience, survival, and the indomitable spirit of Black Americans. They are chefs, yes, but also historians, cultural ambassadors, and innovators in their own right. For a long time, the outside world seemed to view Southern food as little more than fried chicken and biscuits, but if there's one thing the revitalization of Southern food is proving, it's that the cuisine is far more nuanced and diverse than the cliches let on. Modern Southern chefs are taking traditional ingredients and transforming them into dishes that feel both timeless and contemporary. Charleston has become a culinary hotspot for meticulously preserving heirloom grains like Carolina Gold rice and Sea Island red peas. Ingredients once essential to the Southern diet, but nearly forgotten. The obsession with heritage seeds and traditional farming methods is inspiring a wave of chefs who are just as passionate about where their food comes from as how it tastes on the plate. At the same time, chefs are exploring how global influences from Vietnamese to West African are shaping modern Southern kitchens. In Houston, chefs are exploring the connection between the immigrant food cultures of the Gulf Coast and the classic Southern dishes he grew up with. It is proving that Southern food is not a monolith, but a living, evolving thing that reflects the diversity of its people. The farm-to-table movement is nothing new, but in the South, it's more than a trend. It's a return to the way things have always been done. In rural communities, eating seasonally and locally wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. Today, Southern chefs are reconnecting with local farmers, reviving small-scale agriculture, and elevating humble, once-overlooked ingredients like field peas, mustard greens, and turnips into showstoppers. It's this blending of the old and the new, the local and the global, that's defining the next chapter of Southern cuisine. It's not just the food itself that's being revitalized, but also who's cooking it. Women chefs, many of them women of color, are leading the charge in reimagining Southern food. They're stepping into spaces long dominated by men, bringing with them a respect for tradition, but also a fierce desire to innovate. The revitalization of Southern food isn't about nostalgia or a longing for a simpler time. It's about recognizing the complexity of the past while celebrating the possibilities of the future. Chefs are digging deep into their regional roots, pulling up long-forgotten ingredients, techniques, and stories, and reinterpreting them for a new audience that craves authenticity and bold flavors. Southern food today is as much about cultural reclamation as it is about comfort. It's a cuisine born of hardship, but also of celebration. It's a reminder that food, especially in the South, is never just food. It's history on a plate. It's identity made edible. As the next generation of Southern chefs continues to innovate, while staying grounded in tradition, one thing is clear: Southern food is more alive, diverse, and exciting than ever. The future of Southern cuisine is being shaped by voices that were long overlooked. Black chefs, women chefs, and immigrant chefs, each bringing their own histories and experiences to the table. And that's a future worth savoring. I hope you have enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something. Please leave a like and subscribe if you so choose. And as always, remember, cook, drink, eat, and repeat.